Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Succah Daf Yud Zayin, we're going to begin at the very top of the Amud Yud Zayin Amud Aleph by the Mishnah. Hirchik es asichoch min adefanois. If a person distanced the schach from the edge of the wall, shlosh tefachim psul. So this Mishnah introduces us to something that we actually learned in numerous other places, the din of lavud, that if you're going to have a gap, airspace, it cannot be more than 3 tefachim. Even if it's against the side, in which we said there's dof and akuma, that the wall bends, that's only when we're talking about skach pasel. However, when it comes to avir, avir will pasel at 3 tefachim. And there's a important Rashi over here, so let's look at a couple of these Rashis. So Rashi says, Psula de avir pasel b'shloisha, a film and a tzad. Even again, it's on the side. Umekana oimer umafarish hadi amrinan shebeschach pasel min tzad amrinan efanakuma lahachshir ad arba amos. Why, when it comes to schach pasel, we say 4 amos? Hainu de chashvina l'schach ilu min adoifen. We consider that the wall goes up and then it literally bends, so that this schach pasel is actually considered to be wall, and therefore it goes at this degree. However, that's only because there's something there. You can't say it when it comes to air. We don't say, so let's say it goes and then it should bend at a diagonal to be able to, instead of the airspace, it maybe should bend at a diagonal. Gabi avir nami leimahachi. It's a tremendous chiddush that when it comes to schach pasel and doif nekuma, we're saying it goes straight up like this, and then the schach pasel is over here. So this is what a doif nekuma is, and then over here is where the schach kosher begins. We don't say that doif nekuma is that we look at as a diagonal, and this schach pasel doesn't count as anything. It bends until it hits the schach kosher, because then you would say the same din when it comes to avir. So it goes up and then directly at a 90-degree angle. And you can't say that when it comes to air, and that's the reason why airspace is 3 tefachim. Very important chidush that's brought in Rashi, which I believe this is question 9. Hadi amrin doif nekuma ha'im hapirish da doifin koi b'mokam aschach, o da doifin mahalachas tachas aschach umotzias apsul min asukah uma raya b'zeh. So as you said, the wall goes to the mokam aschach. Dimukein nema nami doifin akuma lahachshir avir of the sukkah. Okay, again, you say this beautiful Rashi, which explains the dinim of how doifin akuma works. Now let's continue. We saw one line so far. Let's keep on moving. So let's say you have a house in which part of the roof was removed, the sikach al gambov, and you put schach on top of that. So the din is, I'm just seeing if I have any pictures over here. We have the picture over here of the first case, which we see of avir pasels at 3 tefachim. Okay. And again, let's say you have a house in which part of the roof isn't there. So again, you may have part of the roof that's there. So that's schach pasel, and therefore we say the wall will bend as long as it's up until arba amos. So too when it comes to a courtyard in which it's completely surrounded by this achsadra. You can see this picture over here, that you see that there is this protrusion that comes out on all 3 sides. So normally you say, okay, you can put a sukkah, that could be the 3 walls, you put schach. But the problem is that all of these protrusions are schach pasel. But if this is less than arba amos, then it's okay. Sukkah gedayla shekifua b'davar shin mesachen by So if you have this big sukkah in which some of it is schach pasel, imyesh taknav arba amos psul. Now it seems like the Mishnah is saying the same thing over and over, and therefore the Gemara asks a question. Kol hani lamli. Why do we need to mention all of these different circumstances? Sricha. Diashminan b'aish nifachas. If we mention the first case of the house, so mishum dahani machitzos l'bayis adina. Maybe those walls count because those walls are made for the inside of the house, and that's what you're using as a sukkah. The machitzos lav l'achsadu avidi emelot tzricha. For some reason you would have a halamin, and because the walls of this achsadra, right, those walls are not for that which is inside this area, rather it's for the opposite direction, right, for the actual chatzeros, for the courtyards, or let's say the houses, or whatever those structures are. So maybe you wouldn't be able to count those walls. Sricha diyashmin an hani tarti mishum schach and schach kosher. This is schach kosher, at least the boards are kosher. Maybe they're too big. Avol sukkah gedayo shikapu b'davar shem v'sachin by the schach pasel hu emelo sricha. Maybe you wouldn't say dom hakuma if it's schach pasel completely. Omer Rabba, so Rabba says the following: Haktinu Rabbanan, that I met the Rabbanan the Beirav. The Yasvi come, they were sitting and they said the following: Avir Poisel B'Shloisha, which is what we saw in our Mishnah. Avir air pasels at 3 tfachim, Schach Posel B'Arba. Now this is not like our Mishnah. It says Schach Posel will pasel at 4 tfachim, which is hard to understand because we just said Maramos. V'aminu lahu ana. How do we know Manolahu that air pasels at 3 tfachim? The non, our Mishnah says here Chakes when the pasel 3 tfachim sula ferish. Schach pasel nami. So if that's the case, schach pasel also lo ylisel el ba'arba amos. So if we're quoting our Mishnah as a raya, let's just keep reading the rest of the Mishnah. How could you say that schach pasel pasels at 4 tfachim? It's 4 amos. Did none. So it's beferish that it's not 4 tfachim. Schach pasel pasels at 4 amos. The Amrli, he says bar mina, excluding this. Why? The reason why 4 amos is because that's dof nakuma. I'm not talking about a circumstance of dof nakuma. I'm talking about schach pasel, which is not connected to menatzad, to these walls. So I asked the question. So let's say l'mashal, we're talking about be'emsa. Schach pasel will pasel, according to this pshat, 4 tfachim be'emsa, in the middle of the sukkah. Okay, that's what's referring to. Fine. So, in fact, the Gemara says like this: let's say you have schach pasel less than 4 tfachim, so it's not a problem. And right next to it, you have air of less than 3 tfachim, which is also not a problem. So my sherim chayretz kosher. Now, what happens if my b'shvudim, instead of air, which is worse than schach pasel, what if you fill it up with spits, which is definitely schach pasel? So my psula, doesn't make sense. Practically speaking, we know, if you see this picture over here, that if you have a board which is less than 4 tfachim, and you have air of less than 3 tfachim, that's a sukkah kshera. But all of a sudden you fill it up with air, the air space with schach pasel now becomes more than 4 tfachim and apostles. It's hard to understand. So we say, 1 second. You have a problem because I said the case is 4 tfachim. Don't you have the same question by 4 amos? Yermeli ihach l'didaf nami. Diyarmet schach pasel paisel barba amos. You can say the same question. Ma'il ika schach pasel pachs badal amos. The aber pachs m'shloisha might share. So okay, less than 4 amos. It's 3.9 amos of schach pasel. And then next to it is avir of 2.9 tfachim. So my b'shvud and my psula. So you can say the same question. Why do you have a problem with me? Because I said the schach posel pasels at 4 tefachim. Well, you can say the same question. Fill up the airspace with schach posel, and it will be more than 4 amos. So it's again, it sounds like some reason on a certain way air is less of an issue than schach posel. So the amino on haima. So I'd say back that this is not really a question. Now before we continue, I want to see this Rashi. There's one Rashi which says the Rabbi Shmuel Omer Kavai Mishum Doivna Kumanaguba Lahakshir Damrin Daifanhu Vloy Schach Vein Kam Psul. That when it's our Mishnah, the reason why it's 4 amos is because it's not talking about schach. It's ke'il, like it's a wall. The Chiam Rinan Ba'arba Kigun Be'emsa in the middle, which is again how I read it, but Rashi says it. Rachik min hakoisel dalad amos. It's already more than dalad amos away. The enu yochel avatla the idea akimas daifen. So it's important to, when we think about emsas agag, it has to be that it's already more than 4 amos away. Because if you have one board, which is schach posel, let's say it's 4 tefachim, but it's within, let's say, 2 or 3 amos of the side, that so you can say schach kosher, and you can still say this board is not going to be a problem because it's all doif and akuma. So it has to be that when we say 4 tefachim, it's got to be mamish 4 amos away from the side of the sukkah. So again, bishlam di aminar ba'amois. As we continue to Yud Beis, according to me, I say that schach posel pasels at 4 amos mishum shira. It's all totally on measurements. V'lav shirahu. Hi lav shirahu. This is a measurement. It's not a measurement. So kivan deloy shavi shiraihu la dadil mitzarfi. As we've said numerous times, that in other mesechtas, that you have to have the measurements have to be the same for them to be mitzarf. So since they're not the same, so then it's not mitzarf. Says Rashi, second line. Ve'ein hatam mishum derech nekuma el kach shiuru lipsoy halacha mosh mesinai kishar kol shiurim. It's halacha mosh mesinai. That's what it is. So you can't ask a kasha by derech nekuma. We know that everyone holds that derech nekuma is a din halacha mosh mesinai. So to me, Rabbi says that the kasha is really not a question, because I'm speaking about measurements, and it has if each one is less than 4 amos, one's less than 3 tefachim, it's kosher. It's not a problem, because we look at each one separately, and therefore it doesn't combine. The issue of 4 tefachim is because it separates the sukkah. So Mali is palig b'schach pasal, Mali is palig b'schach pasal la'avir. To you, it's because of separation. You're separating your sukkah. So to you, it wouldn't matter if the schach pasal would be. It doesn't matter if it's schach pasal together with air. So that's why he says it's only kasha on you that you say that the schach is pasal be'emset 4 tefachim. Armalei abai. Lamar nami, according to you also, nihidu ishavi shirai b'sukkah gedayla. So say, okay, it's not the same measurement by a big sukkah. Sukkah katana mi'lo ishavi shirayu isn't going to be the same measurement when we talk about a sukkah katana. Says Rashi, shira masumsum, which means if it's exactly 7 by 7 tefachim, so in that case the measurements will be the same. Says Rashi, al korchach echad zev psul begimel tefachim. Even when it comes to schach pasal, even though you can say, well, it's doif and akuma, you can't say doif and akuma and there's no sukkah left, right? That means there's no schach, it's only wall. So he holds it's got to be at least it's up to 3 tefachim. Says Rashi, given the nothing with Taurus Lavid, chashiv mubatzur l'shiri the sukkah. It's like it's already takes away from the measurement. Kivan de shavi shiraihu in shum sukkah. Let's the rufe. You can't say dof and akuma because the dof and akuma makes a wall, which means that you have to have 7 by 7 tefachim of schach. But if it's bent, it doesn't count. Now avir we consider through lavud, like even though it's air, it's ki'ul, like it's all fine. You can what that means is you can sit under that sukkah, even though it's less than 3 tefachim of airspace. And the same thing when it comes to schach pasul. So according to you, it's the same question when it comes to a sukkah katana. So your question on him is no better or worse than on yourself. Amalei says no. Hasam la mishum d'sheva shirayu la hadadilu. The reason why when it comes to a sukkah it's exactly 7 by 7, it's not that it's true. 3 tefachim will pasul by air and by schach pasul, but that's not because they're the same measurements. Then mishum d'leisa shira de sukkah. It's not a sukkah. If you have already more than 3 tefachim, and there's no more din lavud, and it's like a wall, so you don't have the measurement of a sukkah. You don't have a sukkah. It's not 7 by 7. It's 7 by 7 wall space, but you have to have a schach. One second. Is it true that when you don't see that the measurements are exactly the same, and we're not with starf? But it's not. But we learn, this is brought down in the Shabbos elsewhere by dinim of tumah. Habeged shlosh shlosh. We look at the garments that they have to have some utility. Says Rashi, if you have a garment which is 3 by 3 tefachim, im yachtel lemishka, if it was designated specifically for a zav to sit down on it, metam elisha of avatom, lasos avatom, it could become the din a level of avatoma through tumah zav. But it's sholosh sholosh because it's a davar choshev. Beged is something which is a good material. Hasak, which is a thicker material, arba al arba. It's got to be bigger or else it's not matam. Or leather, chamisha al chamisha. That already is even more, it's 5 by 5. Mafet shisha al shisha. A mat or net, which is much more coarse, so something like that is bigger, 6 by 6. So they're totally different measurements. Natani Allah. And we learned on it. Habegid vasak vasak va'or va'or va'mafet. Let's say you have 2 of them combined together, mitzaref and zeh. They will be mitzaref to the larger measurement. Now, even though they're different shiurim, but we'll still say that it's mitzaref to the larger measurement. Now, hasam to the tiny time. The reason is because they have the same measurement when it comes to moishav, when it comes to sitting on it. When you cut out the exact amount of tefach by tefach, in all of these situations, the din is the same. Says Rashi, Matam et starfin, holvruyin b'shir echad l'tami moishav hazal, because they are equal when it comes to that. As Rashi says, me'echad mikol elu kitza tefach al tefach, the mekatze shemishavai saviv, that you make it nice and smooth edges of ismol, like with a cutting blade, masaknu yafin, you fix it nicely. Afil einbo el tefach tefach tamek in mafarish. So that already has utility. What could it possibly be used for? It's only tefach tefach. So tefach tefach amay chasi. Yermam shemen lakish mishum Rabbi Yana. He says the name Rabbi Yana hoyev roy little al gabi achamor, that you can put it on top of a donkey. What does that mean? Lasois is taloi al gabi mardas hachamor. You can put like a patch on top of a saddle of a donkey, keneged base moishav adam, opposite to where a person sits. So therefore, we see the fact that it's equal, its measurements, at least when it comes to this. So therefore, that's the reason why they're mitzvah. Okay, so that actually answers our question. That's true. If the shiurim are totally different, like in our circumstance by sukkah, then they're not mitzvah. However, when it comes like 4 amos and avir, however, when it comes to this case, it is mitzvah to 1 by 1 tefach le'inyan Moshe. The surah amri lo hashmais lo ha'ilishtan. Surah, that's how they said the lashon. But Nardam Masni amri Buddha Mishul said a little bit differently. Schach pasol be'emsa paisel barba, as we said before, that the middle will pasol at 4 tefachim. Minatzad pasol barba amos, because of dof akuma. Rabbi no bein minatzad bein be'emsa barba amos. Interestingly enough, according to the sheet of Rab, even the middle of the sukkah, you could have schach pasol, but up until 4 hours, even though there's no dof and akuma. Tremendous chiddush. Now, so we learned previously in Daf Yud Daled that nosmal and nesa shurach of arba tvachim share. If you have these wide boards that are 4 tfachim, it's a kosher sukkah. Now, Bishlam Rav Yom Ben Be'emsa Ben Menatzad Bi'arba Amois Mishum Hachik Shera. According to him, it makes sense that these boards are considered to be are kosher. The fact that you let's see if I have a picture over here. Not really. Again, according to the sheet of Rav, whether it's the schach puzzle in the middle or Menatzad, it's Arba Amos Mishum Hachik Shera. These boards are fine because that's what it is. It's not anywhere near 4 amos. El Shmuel Diarba Be'emsa Ba'arba My Shera. If he says that in the middle it puzzles at 4 tfachim, so these boards it says it's 4 tfachim. So how can it be kosher? So how can I skin him in Menatzad? It means that you put the board Menatzad. You're right. If there's a 4 tfachim board in the middle, according to him, it will puzzle. The schach puzzle puzzles Ba'arba tfachim Menatzad Be'emsa. So when does it say 4 tfachim is kosher? You put it Menatzad. Okay. Toshma. Shnei Sedinin Mitzdarfim. We saw this before as well. 2 sheets combine to become schach puzzle, and it becomes problematic. Shnei Nitzarim Mitzdarfim. 2 boards do not combine, and therefore the sukkah is still fine. So Rameir Omer Nitzarim Sedinin, as we said. The boards are like sheets, and they do combine to puzzle. So Bishlam Mulhach Lish Nademer Rav Ben Bamsa Ben Menatzad Ba'arba Amois. I can understand according to this Lashon that when it comes to the middle or in the side, it's 4 amos. By Mitzvah, it's stuff from the Zal amos. So it's you mitzvah to 4 amos, and therefore that's how it'll passel when you are mitzvah these boards up to 4 amos, and you can only say daf of the kuma. If we're talking about its passels even in the middle of 4 tvachim, what are we talking about? Either if these boards are less than 4. The Isbuhu or Dalit, if it is 4, Lamu has to rufe. You don't need to combine it because according to you, 4 tfachim be'emsa in the middle of the sukkah is going to passel. So you don't need to be mitzvah because it's passel by itself. Rather, either Isbuhu Dalit, we're talking about it's not 4, so it's going to be almaninu. What's wrong with these types of boards? Well, all these barba. Really, the board is 4 tfachim. So it's 4 tfachim. What do you mean mitzvah? So the same answer, that it just means they're mistarf on the side. Toshma. Succah ben Asarim, a person put schach as these boards, shel erez, and use this hard cedar wood. Sheish behen dalin, and these cedar wood boards are 4 tfachim. Diver hakol psula. For some reason, everyone holds that these boards are possible. Ein behen dalin. If let's say these boards are not dalid, so Rameir points for Yehuda Machshir. So it's actually a machlokus if it's less than 4, as we continue with Chesed Aleph. Now, Umayda Rameir who said that if it's not dalid, that it's possible, he'll agree that the following circumstance will not be an issue. Will not be an issue. If between each of these boards is the amount of space of a neser, and as we saw in a previous stuff, and you put maybe a little bit more than 50%, but you put a pestle, you put kosher there, then it's fine. And therefore, even though you have these boards which he feels is problematic, but nonetheless, he'll say it's okay if again you removed half of it and you put these other boards. Now, this is why he says it's a good sukkah. How can you possibly say that this is kosher? It's problematic. So I wish there was a picture here, I'm not sure where it isn't, that you actually have a sukkah which is exactly 8 tfachim in the middle. V'yoiv neser pesel v'neser pesel v'neser pesel mahagisa, and neser pesel v'neser pesel v'neser pesel mahagisa. So what you do is you put a neser. There's these wide boards, and then you put schach kosher, wide boards, schach kosher. Yahavilu shnei psilin psolin be'emsa. So you have these 2 kosher ones in the middle, which is 4 tfachim and 4 tfachim combined. So you have in the middle 8 tfachim, vika hechsher sukkah b'emsa. So you have a hechsher sukkah in the middle. So basically, the reason why it'll work in this circumstance is because it's not really minatzad. It's not be'emsa rather. It's not be'emsa. Because again, as we said, you could have schach pasul, and the shaila is, so why do you need to put neser and a pesel? Neser pesel doesn't he hold there is a din of doif and akuma minatzad. Anyway, we're talking about that you have up until 4 amos on this way, up until 4 amos on this way. In the middle is 8 tfachim, but inside of it is not these boards, but rather it's schach kosher, and therefore that's why it combines. That's why it's okay. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's see maybe a bunch of questions. Question 10: Mahu shiuro shel schach pasul? What is the measurement of schach pasul for sukkah katana or b'gedolah? So when it comes to a sukkah katana, as we saw, everyone holds that it's 3 tefachim, right? As we said, on sukkah katana, milo yeshev shiraihu, right? Certainly it's 3 tefachim. By a sukkah gedolah, so minatzad, it's definitely arba amos. No one disputes that because that's dof nekuma. The question is be'emsa. It's either arba tfachim or arba amos. Okay, so that again, that is the whole discussion over here. That the schach pasul be'emsa is it placeable ba'arba? We know minatzad is placeable ba'arba amos. And Rav said bein minatzad bein be'emsa is ba'arba amos. So it's a machlokas be'emsa what the din is. Okay, fine. Question TA 27. Matai aver v'schach pasul shavish shirayil of soil. So when do we say that they're equal? So we said that is by a sukkah katana. This is TA 27. Umasai loy shavish shirayil. By a sukkah gedolah, I guess. Yeah, gedolah loy shavish. Fine. TB 29. We'll see that in tomorrow's daf. Adkan.